What's going on, guys? This is John from Bookie Picks, and today I'm breaking down the model. I feel over the course of time I've gotten so many questions on how I come up with the lines, like my predicted number versus the sports books, and what stats I kind of use to get those lines, and I don't know, just all the ins and outs. And I feel like over the course of time, I've gotten a lot of nuggets of from different people kind of breaking down their models, and I feel this is kind of just paying it forward. And even if you don't make it a models, I feel this would bring a lot of value for you as well, because it'll give you an idea of what stats to look for, or the thought process of how you could do your research even better. So yeah, this was yesterday's games. I'm gonna break it down like on a big picture first, and then get more in detail. So anytime I have a game, let's say this is game two. This was yesterday's game, the Angels and the Braves. The Angels won that. I did have that, so that was nice. Uh, but this is for game one. So we have the Cubs. So on each side right here, we have the batting lineups, of course, and what if they bat lefty righty. Sometimes they're switch hitters. So mine's a player model, so it's not just taking team stats, it's taking the whole uh, each individual batter stats. So we have, let's say, Morale, and I have versus righties versus lefties. So this is his stats versus righty and versus lefty. And you can look at this number, it's weighted on a 100 scale, like weighted runs created plus, which is a very good stat to use for hitters. But 157 just means he scores 57% more runs than the average hitter versus right-handed pitchers. And then you have versus lefty, of course, as I said. So something to take into consideration too, though, is you see it says versus left-handed pitcher. So the Cubs are going against a lefty. That's what that means. Like Bailey Falter's a lefty, and it says versus left-handed pitcher for the Phillies, and you can see right here Drew Smiley. So it's kind of just pulling those numbers. It's getting an average right here, 137. It's just taking all of the numbers, getting an average. And if it's yellow, that means they have the advantage versus lefty. Or no, the stars, my fault. That's what the stars. The highlight means it's versus lefties. Like if it's yellow highlighted, that means they're going against left-handed pitcher. I also have that listed down here. But yeah, the Cubs have the advantage, 137 compared to the Phillies, going against the lefty 110. That's why there's that star highlighted. Then next below that is the lineups that the teams use for the past 9 games. And I thought this was important to add just because there's a lot of teams, let's say they're going against a lefty, a left-handed pitcher. And a lot of these sites that I'm using to pull the lineups from, they're not always accurate. So I can kind of cross-reference, what their lineups look like before against lefties. So here we have these two right here. You'll see at the bottom there's versus right-handed pitcher, versus right. So this goes in order. The first is the most recent game, their lineup, and it goes back to 9 games. So you can see this game and this game, they were left-handed pitchers. They went against left-handed pitchers, the Cubs. So you can kind of see like Hap batted third, he usually bats third, you can see across the board, but there's certain times like certain players like Boat, he bats like second, he bats eighth in the lineup. And I don't know, you can just see there's differences. Like I take the time to look, you can pick up to see where the sites that have projected batting lineups, where they're probably off. Like they have it right here, you see, but that's what we have right here. Then the same thing with the Phillies. You can see versus lefties. Did they have one? Yep, they had Schwarber. So they've gone against, 2 lefties as well. So you can see they used almost the same exact lineups except Gregorius and Alec Thomas. Munoz is the same. So yeah, I use that just to kind of see, and you see in the lineup right here, we have it. But that's nice to have. I actually recently added that, so before I was just going straight off of the websites that project the lineups, but they were really inaccurate at times. So now I can cross-reference it. The next part is pitchers. So starting pitchers, I have projected ERAs, which isn't their, of course, actual ERA. Some people use ERA to project ERA, which is actually really inaccurate to do. Um, Stats like FIP are much better at predicting ERA than ERA is, because this is a predictive stat more than just telling you what has happened in the past. Then WHIP, walks and hits per innings pitched and left on base percentage. I use a couple more stats. That's in the other equation. Orange is the main one I use for the most part, but that's how I get my projected ERAs. Takes FIP, WHIP, left on base, and it blends them together to get a projected ERA. But what I recently added was for pitchers. I mean, I used to just use full season, which I felt was pretty good, but um, I just know from being a pitcher, I played baseball most of my life. Like when you're pitching well, that matters. Like last 30 days, I feel especially for pitchers should be accounted for something. So that's last 30 days. Then you have home and away. Like let's say someone's pitching at Coors Field at home, their ERA might be 6 because at the Rocky Stadium they give up a lot of runs because they're in high altitude. So and maybe when they're away they only average a 4 ERA. So I added that as well. So it's nice. This last equation right here takes all three of those. It takes the full season, last 30 days, and the away. Uh, and it weights them differently. Like full season, I have about 50%. Uh, Last 30 days, about 30, and then the away, about 20%. So it takes this, and this, and weights them to get 4.81 expected ERA. Then I mean it breaks down how many runs he gives up in 5 innings, how many expected innings pitched I have for that pitcher, which takes the average, and um, also how many innings the team usually, or how do I word this? Like if the Cubs are a good hitting team, actually like the Yankees, they on average don't let pitchers go, let's say 7 innings pitched, so accounting for the hitting as well, comparing a batting team to the league average. So that's pitchers. Then I have relief pitching, which is really, really in depth, but a lot goes into it. Same equation. Well, there's actually a little different equation that's used into this one, but the main part, I take every single reliever from the team. So you'll see right here, left-handed pitchers innings pitched. So out of all the innings pitched, I thought it was important not just to list the percent of right-handers versus left. The Cubs have about 80% of their innings pitched are by righties and 20% are by lefties. So that matters. Some teams versus righties, they smoke, and some versus lefties are horrible. So I kind of weigh that into my projected ERA. So and do the exact same thing for closers. I actually show you because I think this is where I I do pretty well in relieving. Where some people avoid full games, they don't want to deal with relievers, but I kind of took every single team. Or if I scroll up, yep, right here. So this is the Diamondbacks. It has the relievers, my projected ERA, and I did this for every single team. So it pulls all the stats automatically every day, every time I refresh it. So up here, you see, so Diamondbacks have 43% of their innings pitched by lefties. And then setups and closers, same thing. So it's important to know sometimes, like let's say the Astros, 100% right-handed pitchers. Like I know when the setups and closers come up that if the team's going against the Astros batting, I'm going to be using the stats for their right-handed pitchers, against right-handed pitchers. So I mean, a lot more goes into it than that, but on a big scale, that's kind of what it's pulling there. And then it said as those are stats to use right here. FIP, whip, left on base, K to base on ball percent. There's a couple. And this is actually how I come up with the lines. I forgot to, I mean, this is a small detail, but it's just cool to see. I have it pull like, how many games in a row they won, last 10 games for both teams, then their actual overall record. Just to have an idea, and I put that right here as well. I used to think it mattered for winning percent, not winning percent, but the winning streaks, and I learned over time every game is an individual event, so I don't add more to a team because they're on a 9-game win streak. Like if in blackjack there was 9 straight blacks, it doesn't make it more likely that black's going to come to 10th time. It's the same odds every single time. So I didn't incorporate that. I went back and forth about that for a while, but that's just where I stand on that. So I don't take winning streaks into account. I mean, you can feel free to do that if you feel it matters, but yeah, this is actually where I get the value, like on all my picks and my actual line. So there's a lot. I'm not gonna break down all the equations that I use to come up with the line, but pretty much I get my money line for a team. So for the Cubs, I have minus 139, and the actual sports books line was plus 120. So where I have the Cubs as the favorite, the sports books had the Cubs as the underdog, and the Cubs actually won this game. So this was a nice win, and the value is just taking. It's pretty much the difference between my line and their line. So then I have the total runs. Adjusted total is accounting for a couple factors like weather, park factors. Also, actually, I said park factors. I'll show you this section because I was going to show you extra innings right here. But teams might have ballpark factors of, let's say, it's the Cubs right here. So the Cubs park factor at the Phillies stadium is 0.81 because the overall park factor in terms of runs is 0.9 at Philly Stadium, which basically means 10% more or less runs are scored at Phillies stadium. So if you take that number, that's cool, but it's not as accurate as like knowing, okay, certain like lefties might hit a lot better at a stadium compared to righties. So I have that accounted for. So having 0.81 is what batters hit in terms of runs scored at the Phillies Stadium, and 0.98 for righties. So righties do better at Phillies Stadium. So it's when you see the Cubs in this particular lineup have 8 righties and 1 lefty. If you scroll up, you'll see all righties except 1 lefty. I mean that matters, because like I just said, righties hit better. So it kind of takes that into account, and I get a weighted true park factor based on the lineup for the Cubs. It's not just going to be 0.9, it's 0.96, you see, because they have a lot more righties. And then the same happens here. It's 0.92 because there's more lefties for the Phillies, so it's going to be lower because it's 0.81, about 20% less runs are scored from lefties. So yeah, I hope I explained that well. But as I said, there's weather factors and umpires. Sometimes I use umpires if I'm coming up with the lines later. I'll do the umpire factor, but usually early games I don't know who the umpire is going to be. And I know you can project that, like they show you who is the from home to first to second, all the umpires, and they all rotate. But I just don't take the time for that, and I don't know. So I don't think it's super important, but at certain times I use it if I notice a certain umpire, there's just way more runs scored every time he umpires a game. Maybe 15% more runs are scored. And then extra innings, this was actually something I recently added, which pertains to when I was talking about the adjusted total, like compared to just having the regular 8.04. This adds about zero point 0.9 together collectively. But so what I found here, I did this like a month ago too. So in the 2022 season, I still have to update it, but through about 2,000 games, there was 119 that were in extra innings. So if you take that and divide them out, you get about 6% of games went to extra innings. So like what I was trying to test was like how many more runs would be scored. How am I trying to like put this in words? Like how many more runs should be added to the line with the possibility that there could be extra innings in a baseball game? So knowing that there's a 6% chance for games to go to extra innings, and then seeing that on average 1.92 runs were scored per inning, you just take 6% times 1.92 and you get about 0.114 runs. So every game I add like 1/10 of a run, to the final total runs adjusted. So it kind of averages it all out. It's like a small thing, but when it comes to betting totals, that actually matters. So here, if I take that part out of the equation, you'll see it said 0.98 a second ago. There we go. See 0.84. So it rounded it up, but yeah, you can see that part right there. That's a small thing, but I just thought I'd mention that. Um, and first five, it's the same thing. I just have to put in the actual lines, and then we get a number. Let's say it was minus 160, and then the other side was 160. Actually, they were the underdog, so it would have been something like, let's just say this because it really doesn't matter. Then I'd have the value to bet first five. How many runs were projected? I could get into that. Like I rarely ever make first five run bets that are based on team runs right here. I have like who I'll win first five, but not like over unders first five, which is something I could start doing because I have the number for both teams, how many runs I think they'll score. And 65% chance the Cubs would have been leading after 5 innings, which is how the lines are based of like minus 185 and getting the winning percent. So in first inning bets, I to simplify it, I mean it's just taking, of course, the starting pitchers and who I have, like let's say the first four batters or so, taking their stats, and it's taking all that and in the end giving me a probability of what percent chance is there that the Cubs score 0 runs, and then the percent chance that the Phillies score 0 runs. And just like in basketball, like let's say someone shoots 50% from the line, like the odds that they make both free throws are 1/2 times 1/2, which is 1/4. So 25% of the time, a 50% free throw shooter will make both free throws. So it's the same concept, taking these two percentages right here and multiplying them to get you see it's taking both of these and multiplying them to get the probability that it's under, going like that there will be 0 runs scored, and then you just subtract this by 1 to get the over. So yeah, I had the Phillies Cubs game 54%, about 55 if you round it up, that there'd be no runs scored in the first. And I think I think that's pretty much it, honestly. Can't think of, and as I said, I go through every day, and it's cool because like I'll click on something and just with one click, these are called macros in Excel, which are real powerful. Like you save so much time. Like if I did this manually, you notice how it pulled up the team's stats. Everything is different. It pulls up the hitters, righty, lefty, the lineups. So I'll go down here again, back to the Angels. See Otani, who's pitching for the day. Uh, this I have to update right here. I just realized this I it pulled a site that would show the velocities of pitchers in their last like I think 10 starts or so, which is important. You know, if a pitcher's pitching real bad, maybe his fastball it's dropped by like 4 miles an hour or something. I just have to update that right there. But um, yeah, it's cool. That's just kind of though, as I said, all the proponents like all the different factors that go into my picks because I know I've had so many questions on how I come up with the lines, and then some people will be like, the Yankees are not going to lose today," and it's like my whole model is based on value. So if I think one team's going to beat another, um, all these factors go into it. So there's no bias in it. You know, I'm just looking at what I have, taking the projected of starters, relievers, closers, and the hitters, and getting the final line. And if there's value, then I bet it. If there's not, then I leave it. So yeah, I hope you kind of picked up something from that or found value in it. And I'll be doing a lot more of these. I might start doing like my favorite bet of the days, breaking these down. But yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.